and hundreds of miles long. In recent years, scientists have come to believe the solid iron core of Mercury could in fact be molten. Normally, the core of smaller planets cools rapidly, but after extensive research, the results were not in line with those expected from a solid core. Scientists now believe the core to contain a lighter element such as sulfur, which would lower the melting temperature of the core material. Owing to its proximity to the Sun, Mercury is a difficult planet to visit. Only two spacecraft have ever visited Mercury, Mariner 10 in 1974 and the Messenger probe in 2008. Mercury is named for the Roman messenger to the gods. The exact date of Mercury's discovery is unknown as it predates its first historical mention, one of the first mentions being by the Sumerians around in 3000 BC. Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system. At just 4,879 kilometers across the equator, it is 3 times smaller than the Earth. Mercury is just 4,879 kilometers across its equator, 3 times smaller than the Earth. Up until 1965, it was thought that the same side of Mercury constantly faced the Sun. For every 2 orbits of the Sun, Mercury completes 3 rotations about its axis. 13 times a century, Mercury can be observed from the Earth passing across the face of the Sun in an event called a transit. Even though the planet is small, Mercury is very dense. This is largely due to Mercury being composed mainly of heavy metals and rock. Mercury does not have any moons or rings. It's not known who discovered Mercury and has been known since the beginning of civilization. The average radius of the Sun is nearly 700,000 kilometers, 100 times that of the Earth. The Sun is an almost perfect sphere with a difference of just 10 kilometers in diameter between the poles and the equator. Considering the vast expanse of the Sun, this means it is the closest thing to a perfect sphere that has been observed in nature. The Sun is mostly composed of hydrogen and helium. At the core of the Sun, gravitational forces produce immense pressure and temperature, which can reach more than 15 million degrees centigrade. Hydrogen atoms get compressed and fused together, creating helium. This process is called nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion produces huge amounts of energy. The energy radiates outward to the Sun's surface, atmosphere and beyond. From the core, energy moves to the radiative zone, where it bounces around for up to 1 million years before moving up to the convective zone, the upper layer of the Sun's interior. The temperature here drops below 2 million degrees centigrade. Large bubbles of hot plasma form a soup of ionized atoms and move upwards to the photosphere. The Sun is all the visible colors mixed together, and appears white to our eyes. Venus is the second planet from the Sun, and is the second brightest object in the night sky after the Moon. Venus is the second largest terrestrial planet, and is sometimes referred to as the Earth's sister planet due to their similar size and mass. Venus is nearly as big as the Earth with a diameter of 12,104 kilometers. Venus is also known as the morning star and the evening star. Venus is thought to be made up of a central iron core, rocky mantle and silicate crust. A day on Venus lasts longer than a year. It takes 243 Earth days to rotate once on its axis. However, a year on Venus takes 225 Earth days. At one point it was thought Venus might be a tropical paradise. The dense clouds surrounding Venus make it impossible to view its surface from outside its atmosphere. It was only when radio mapping was developed in the 1960s that scientists were able to observe and measure the extreme temperatures and hostile environment. It is thought Venus did once have oceans, but these evaporated as the planet's temperature increased. The Russians sent the first mission to Venus. The Venera 1 space probe was launched in 1961, but lost contact with base. The USA also lost their first probe to Venus. Mariner 1, although Mariner 2 was able to take measurements of the planet in 1962. The average surface temperature is 462 degrees centigrade, and because Venus does not tilt on its axis, there is no seasonal variation. The dense atmosphere of around 96% carbon dioxide traps heat and causes a greenhouse effect. A detailed study of Venus is currently underway. In 2006, the Venus Express space shuttle was sent into orbit around Venus by the European Space Agency, and is sending back information about the planet. Originally planned to last 500 Earth days, the mission has been extended several times. More than 1,000 volcanoes or volcanic centers larger than 20 kilometers have been found on the surface of Venus. The atmospheric pressure on Venus is 92 times greater than the Earth's. While its size and mass are similar to Earth, the small asteroids are crushed when entering its atmosphere, meaning no small craters lie on the surface of the planet. The Soviet Union's Venera 3 was the first man-made craft to land on Venus in 1966. Mars is a terrestrial planet with a thin atmosphere. The atmosphere is composed primarily of carbon dioxide. The rotational period and seasonal cycles of Mars are similar to those of Earth. Mars has two moons, Phobos and Deimos, which are small and irregularly shaped. These may be captured asteroids. The red color of Mars is due to the rock and dust covering its surface, being rich in iron. Mars has the largest dust storms in the solar system. They can last for months and cover the entire planet. The seasons are extreme because of its elliptical, oval-shaped, orbital path around the Sun is more elongated than most other planets in the solar system. On Mars, the Sun appears about half the size as it does on Earth. There have been 39 missions to Mars since the first USSR's Marsnik 1 was launched in 1960. Only 16 missions to Mars have been successful. Mars is composed of minerals containing silicon and oxygen, metals, and other elements that typically make up rock. The planet Jupiter is the fifth planet out from the Sun. Jupiter is the fourth brightest object in the solar system. Only the Sun, Moon and Venus are brighter. It is one of 5 planets visible to the naked eye from Earth. It is 2.5 times more massive than all the other planets in the solar system combined. It is made primarily of gases and is therefore known as a gas giant. Gas giants are composed mostly of gases, such as hydrogen, with small amounts of rocky material at their cores. Jupiter has unique cloud features. They are made primarily of ammonia crystals, sulfur, and mixtures of the two compounds. The upper atmosphere of Jupiter is divided into cloud belts and zones. The Great Red Spot is a huge storm on Jupiter and has raged for at least 350 years. The red spot is so large that 3 Earths could fit inside it. Jupiter's interior is made of rock, metal, and hydrogen compounds. Below Jupiter's massive atmosphere, which is made primarily of hydrogen, there are layers of compressed hydrogen gas, liquid metallic hydrogen, and a core of ice, rock, and metals. 8 spacecraft have visited Jupiter: Pioneer 10 and 11, Voyager 1 and 2, Galileo, Cassini, Ulysses, and New Horizons missions. Europa was discovered in 1610 by Galileo Galilei. It is the smallest of Jupiter's Galilean moons, however it is still the 6th largest moon in the solar system. Europa is nearly the same size as Earth's moon. As Europa orbits Jupiter, it does so with a slightly elliptical orbit. This change of distance around its orbit changes the gravitational pull on Europa, which distorts its shape. Because Europa is water-rich and has a warm interior, scientists think it could be hospitable to life. Europa has a water ocean underneath its cracked surface, covering a small rocky core. There is a magnetic field at Europa, induced through interaction with Jupiter's massive magnetic field. Apart from the cracks, Europa has very smooth surface, which indicates that water from beneath somehow escapes and freezes smooth. There are bright and dark markings, and a few craters. Other features are called linea, jumbled lenticulae, and freckles. Some of these surface features may be formed when the surface ice melts from the heat from its warm interior. Planetary scientists think that this ocean is mainly salty water, which may be the reason for the magnetic field. There are also observations that indicate clay-rich minerals. The Voyager and Galileo spacecraft each returned detailed images of Europa. Future missions to this watery world include a NASA mission called Europa Clipper, and an ESA mission called Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, JUICE. These would launch and arrive in the 2020s. The 4 gas giants in our solar system are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. The ancient Babylonians were the first to record their sightings of Jupiter, around the 8th century BC. Jupiter is named after the king of the Roman gods. To the Greeks, it represented Zeus, the god of thunder. Jupiter has a thin ring system which was only discovered recently with the Voyager probes. These rings are composed mainly of dust particles ejected from some of Jupiter's smaller worlds during impacts from incoming comets and asteroids. The ring system begins some 92,000 kilometers above Jupiter's cloud tops and stretches out to more than 225,000 kilometers from the planet. Uranus is the seventh planet from the Sun. With minimum atmospheric temperature of -224 degrees centigrade, Uranus is nearly coldest planet in the solar system. It is not visible to the naked eye, and became the first planet discovered with the use of a telescope. Uranus was officially discovered by Sir William Herschel in 1781. It is too dim to have been seen by the ancients. At first Herschel thought it was a comet, but several years later it was confirmed as a planet. Uranus is often referred to as an ice giant. Like the gas giants, it has a hydrogen upper layer, a small amount of helium mixed in. Uranus is tipped over on its side with an axial tilt of 98 degrees and is often described as rolling around the Sun on its side. Uranus makes one trip around the Sun every 84 Earth years. During some parts of its orbit, one or the other of its poles point directly at the Sun and get about 42 years of direct sunlight. The rest of the time they are in darkness. Below that is an icy mantle, which surrounds a rock and ice core. Within the upper atmosphere is water, ammonia and methane ice crystals that give the planet its pale blue color. The upper atmosphere of Uranus is covered by a methane haze which hides the storms that take place in the cloud decks. Uranus has two sets of very thin dark-colored rings, composed of tiny dust-sized particles, to small boulders. There are 11 inner rings and 2 outer rings, which were possibly formed when one or more of Uranus's moons were broken up in an impact. The first rings were discovered in 1977, with the 2 outer rings being discovered in Hubble Space Telescope between 2003 and 2005. The 8th planet from the Sun, making it the most distant main planet in the solar system. Neptune is the smallest of the ice giants. The atmosphere is made of layers of hydrogen, helium, and methane gases, which enclose a layer of water, ammonia and methane ice. The methane absorbs red light, which makes the planet appear a lovely blue. High, thin clouds drift in the upper atmosphere. This gas giant may have formed much closer to the Sun before migrating to its present position. Neptune cannot be seen with the naked eye from Earth and was not known to ancient astronomers. It was first observed through a telescope in 1846. Its position was determined using mathematical predictions. Neptune spins on its axis very rapidly. Its equatorial clouds take just 18 hours to make one rotation. This is because Neptune is not solid body. Neptune has a very thin collection of rings. As with other planets' ring systems, they are likely made up of ice particles mixed with dust grains and possibly coated with a carbon-based substance. Neptune has 14 moons. Triton is Neptune's largest moon and is the only large moon in the solar system to orbit in the opposite direction to its planet's rotation. This is known as a retrograde orbit. Triton is a frozen wonderland, exhibiting a strange array of terrain types. Its icy surface has craters, geysers, and rugged landscape called Cantaloupe terrain. These all indicate some sort of activity going on inside, and cryovolcanism spouting material to the surface. The geysers of Triton spewing nitrogen gas out from beneath the surface into long plumes that rise as high as 8 kilometers. As a result, Triton has a very thin nitrogen atmosphere. The southern polar cap of Triton is covered with frozen nitrogen and methane. There may be a north polar cap as well.